Portland here, reshuffle the deck and get higher draft odds, and you put yourself in a position where, you know what, if an opportunity becomes available for a star trade or a great player and you have the number 3 pick, you might be the team that can go get that guy. And then you suddenly might have a team that looks really, really great around Damian Lillard.
It appears like we may not see Damian Lillard play basketball the rest of this season. And you wrote an article about this. And I think that every observer of the NBA realizes that that run, that time with what they had going in Portland, that is over, and they expect the sell-off and the rebuild around Damian Lillard, and not like a rebuild where you go and get draft picks and start all over, but rather, okay, we have this centerpiece. How do we want to build out around it on the fly, altering our lineup by swapping out what we have for whatever we're going to try next? So kind of walk me through. I know you had to think about this a lot in order to write the article, but upon the news that we're not going to see Damian Lillard, they got a lot of choices to make and new guys running the show there.
Yeah, so I mean that was in my Monday column with 7 observations, and it was a 5th one on there for anybody who wants to read it. And it came out like a couple days before this Dame news came out about.
And now it's become more serious.
Yeah, it just replaced might with did get surgery, and like the article still stands the same. I mean, basically, like my point in the article is like the best path forward for them is to lose games this season. It's to get higher draft odds. It's to reshuffle the deck. It's to trade a Nurkic, a Covington, possibly a CJ McCollum, even a Ben McLemore for that matter, and reshuffle the deck here in a way that sets you up for a better team around Lillard next season. Because like I said earlier, in regards to Bradley Beal, there's no indication that Beal wants out of Washington. There's still no indication that Lillard wants out of Portland. So if you're Portland, you have this superstar signed long-term that is committed to your franchise despite all the crap this past year. It's their responsibility to build the proper team around him when you have a player of his caliber. This is the situation you're in. Unless you decide to blow it up entirely, I don't think that's the smartest thing to do for Portland in their given situation. Reshuffle the deck, get worse this season, get higher draft odds, and you know what? Maybe on lottery night, you win it. You get the number 1 or number 2 pick. I had some people in my mentions responding about that, saying the Blazers and with Dame in his early 30s can't be patient for a prospect to develop. Well, 2 responses to that. A, just because you have a high pick doesn't mean you keep it. You could use it in trades. It positions you to be flexible. And if you do keep that player, you also do need to think about life after Lillard. And I think for the Portland Blazers franchise here, they are in a position now where it is a major silver lining in this waste of a season and this disappointing, underwhelming, frustrating season that now, with Lillard being out for at least 5 to 6 weeks, likely longer considering where that would put him when he gets reevaluated. You know how these things are. Yeah. He's gonna get reevaluated in 6 weeks, and then they're gonna say he's gonna get reevaluated in 2 more weeks, and then it's late March, and then they're gonna say he's shut down for the rest of the season. That's what's gonna happen.
Well, this has been a problem since the Olympics.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, I'd be shocked if Damian Lillard plays another game this season. I would be shocked. Just based off the timeline. Logically, it doesn't make sense. But for Portland here, reshuffle the deck and get higher draft odds, and you put yourself in a position where, you know what, if an opportunity becomes available for a star trade or a great player and you have the number 3 pick, you might be the team that can go get that guy. And then you suddenly might have a team that looks really, really great around Damian Lillard. Change can happen fast. And for Portland, this is the best path forward, shutting down Dame.
Do you think that if we don't see, if Paul George gets the surgery, all right, let's just say it doesn't heal right. I think it was Jake Fisher that was reporting on this. It doesn't heal right. He might get the surgery. So let's say he does. At that point, do you think that rules out a Kawhi return? Do you think Kawhi still would come back?
No.
Even if Paul... No.
The Kawhi will only come back if the Clippers feel like they can win a championship. Then Kawhi could come back. But if Paul George is out for the rest of the season, 100%, Kawhi's
that's still changing. Then again, if you told me they can hold down the fort, until Kawhi Leonard comes back, well, there's still you're still a team that was able to win without Kawhi Leonard last year in the playoffs. So it stands to reason they might be able to win, at least beat somebody in the first round if Kawhi Leonard is, top 5-10 player in the NBA, Kawhi Leonard again. But it's fascinating to think about, whether they're just a write-off completely.
They really might be.
They wouldn't be if you told me that Kawhi would still come back. But if Paul George says I'm getting surgery and then that rules out Kawhi, then that's the end of that. And we don't even have to think about them being a threat.
Look though, with the Clippers, they're in it's a different position than what the Blazers are in, but it's similar in the sense that the Clippers need to use this season to set up for next season and the year after that. Like, how do you maximize Paul George and Kawhi Leonard when they're healthy for the start of the season and you enter the year with legitimate championship hopes? And also Jake Fisher had in that report about, the potential surgery is the potential for them to be sellers too. And I've heard the same thing where whether it's guys like Marcus Morris or Serge Ibaka or Reggie Jackson or Eric Bledsoe, the Clippers are a team to monitor here when it comes to Kennard, for that matter. You're right. The Clippers are a team to watch to be sellers because, again, we just said it earlier. OKC has all of their picks. All of them. If the Clippers bottom out this year, they don't benefit. The Thunder get that pick. So for the Clippers, they need to restock their asset cupboard. They don't have anything. It's empty right now. And if they're able to get something for Morris, for Bledsoe, for even Batum, for that matter, they got to really think about that and come back next season with a totally different looking roster because with the mix right now with their veterans is not effective.
It's fascinating because that's two different teams, Kevin, that I do think, as you say, if we look at it and we say Portland is a seller and we say the Clippers are a seller, both of those teams were built to win right now. So they are flooded with veterans that can help you win at the highest level, right? Now, maybe not as a collection, it's not good enough, right?
But for somebody else.
Yeah, but for somebody else, there's a lot of guys on those teams. If it's not a crap team sell-off. It's a team that's selling off simply because of their circumstances that have taken place, where you've had these injuries and whatnot. But that, like, all those different guys, when you're talking about a Nurkic here, a Covington here, a Luke Kennard
McCollum,
here,
Powell,
a Marcus Morris. Yeah. You could see veteran teams being out there being like, oh boy, we could really enhance ourselves by adding, this guy. Because you're not adding that whole roster. You're just getting to pick off one of them and say, this is how this guy fits with us. So it's interesting because it's like these two teams that probably fancied themselves as contenders or wanted to be contenders. They're not. So their sell-off is a lot different than a team that's just, we're not achieving what we wanted to, so we're selling off, and just going to tank out and get draft picks.